In my video Questions and Answers number 1, I made reference to an article by Hank Hanegraaff, and I used one of his points as an example to illustrate the typical preterist understanding of Revelation chapter 11. And I thought I would return and answer the other 2 points in his article. And I'll jump straight to the summary, but the article is linked in the description box below, and you can read it for yourself if you like. I'm just going to go straight to the summary here though and get to the point. In summary, among the reasons we can be certain that the book of Revelation was not written 25 years after the destruction of Jerusalem, 3 tower above the rest. Now, first of all, it's ridiculous for him to say we can be certain that the book of Revelation was not written 25 years after the destruction of Jerusalem. We can be certain. No, you cannot be certain, sir. All evidence is against you. All of it. First, just as it is unreasonable to suppose that someone writing a history of the World Trade Center in the aftermath of September 11 would fail to mention the destruction of the Twin Towers, so too it stretches credulity to suggest that Revelation was written in the aftermath of the devastation of Jerusalem and the Jewish temple, and yet makes no mention of this apocalypse. So there's his first point. Additionally, if John is writing in AD 95, it is incredible to suppose he would not mention the fulfillment of Christ's most improbable and apocalyptic vision. So Hank's 2 points seem to be this. First, Hank thinks John should have mentioned the destruction of the temple. And second, Hank thinks John should have reminded the reader of Christ's not one stone upon another prophecy. Now, if you look at these 2 points, you know what you notice? They're really the same point. Hank is basically saying that he thinks John should have mentioned the destruction of Jerusalem. And it seems like nothing more than unwarranted demands to me. I mean, where would John mention this? In the opening of the book, where he says, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and then the vision starts from there. Hank apparently thinks in the opening of the book, John should have mentioned this. I don't see why. There's no reason to demand such a thing. But in fact, we do have every reason to believe Revelation was written after AD 70. John's vision and Ezekiel's vision utilize the same symbolism. And John would not utilize the symbolism in a manner contrary to its source, Ezekiel. Or I could phrase it this way. When God gave the prophetic vision to Ezekiel utilizing this symbolism, he's not going to do that then again to John later and have a different concept in mind. It's very clear that Ezekiel is giving his prophecy after the destruction of Jerusalem by the Babylonians, and then he has this vision of the future glory of Israel. And there's no reason to suggest that John didn't have the same context in mind when he uses this symbolism in Revelation 11. The temple lot must have been cleared of the temple when John had this vision.
In the 25th year of our captivity, in the beginning of the year, in the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year, after that the city was smitten, in the selfsame day the hand of the Lord was upon me, and brought me thither. In the visions of God brought he me into the land of Israel, and set me upon a very high mountain, by which was as the frame of a city on the south. And he brought me thither, and behold, there was a man whose appearance was like the appearance of brass, with a line of flax in his hand, and a measuring reed. And he stood in the gate, And the man said unto me, Son of man, behold with thine eyes, and hear with thine ears, and set thine heart upon all that I shall show thee. For to the intent that I might show them unto thee art thou brought hither. Declare all that thou seest to the house of Israel.
Now, I want to reinforce what I've told you in this video by quoting from a scholar who's not a premillennialist, okay? And his name is Dr. George Salmon, and he was a famous Anglican theologian, and he was the provost of Trinity College in Dublin. And he wrote a book called A Historical Introduction to the Study of the Books of the New Testament. And it had wide circulation. It was well known, okay? And well respected, all right? And he's dealt with all of this preterist issue and the Neronian date and this, just his whole life he studied this and came to the conclusion it was false, and he gives all the reasons why. It's a very good book if you want to read it, and it's available online. I'll give you a link to it in the description box below. But I want to quote from this for those of you who take Hank Hanegraaff seriously. Just listen to this quote, okay? And indeed, on looking at the passage, it is somewhat difficult to understand how anyone could have imagined that the vision represents the temple as still standing. For the whole scene is laid in heaven, and the temple that is measured is the heavenly temple. We have only to compare this vision with the parallel vision of a measuring reed seen by Ezekiel, chapter 40, in which the prophet is commanded to measure, surely not the city which it stated had been demolished 14 years previously, but the city of the future seen by the prophet in vision. This is very simple, folks. It's very easy. And anyone that calls themselves the Bible answer man, but is apparently unaware of the parallel between Revelation 11 and Ezekiel 40, they are not a Bible answer man.